What's up, everyone? It is Boston Card Hunter. This is going to be a different video. It's actually an interview with somebody that has been through the PSA grading process. I've been wanting to talk to somebody like this for like 2 years. I found Robert the other day on Instagram and I fielded tons of questions and I consolidated them all. We're going to walk through everything. We're going to find out things like, is grading truly blind? Do well-known submitters ever get different treatment? Are higher value cards graded differently? And does PSA care more about speed and accuracy? And also things like, are you allowed to go out and drink for lunch and come back and grade and fun things like that? So, Robert, welcome, man. I'm
Thank you.
psyched to
Thank
talk
you.
to you, dude.
Oh yeah, I'm psyched to talk to you about it as well.
All right, I'm gonna try not to interrupt you too much because I do that when I'm caffeinated and excited. But all right, so the first section I'm gonna call training standards and process. So again, Robert has been through PSA's training process. He did sort of not a fake grading, but like a proxy grading for a little while. Then he actually graded cards for a little while. So he's gonna know the answers to all of these. So how are graders trained?
So pretty much it's on the job training. You do have people who are aware of how to grade cards, people who have a common knowledge of it. But for the most part, it's pretty much just the first start of it is they get you in there and they start you training and teaching you how to grade the cards properly.
Okay, so it's like an apprenticeship. So it sounds to me like an old school, like plumbing apprenticeship, metalworking apprenticeship. You just watch it get done and get good at it. So that's
Oh yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Um, is vintage graded differently than modern?
Vintage is graded differently than modern. There's actually a group of people who do the vintage cards. So
Interesting.
some of the like you guys anybody who thinks that like these rookie guys that are starting out or like younger dudes who might not know vintage are grading them, they are not the people who are grading those cards. People who are grading those are the people who have been there for years, who have been doing the grading for years and know how to grade that process and have a knowledge of vintage cards. They're the ones that are grading that.
Wow, I did not know that. That makes sense. I guess I'm going to give props to PSA on that one. I think it's
Oh yeah.
important because vintage cars are easy to fake and trim and do all sorts of fun things with. So that's good that the more seasoned vets are doing that.
Yeah, we're
Interesting.
talking like guys who have been there for like 20, probably know the game during the vintage card era.
Yeah,
They're the ones that are grading it. You're not getting some guy that's just off the street who just got hired grading those cards. There's no way.
interesting. Are graders given official examples or benchmarks of what like a PSA 8, 9, and 10 should look like?
Well, it's common knowledge. It's actually something that's on the PSA website that you can actually look at, and it shows you what they're looking for when it comes to each grade. So you can go on the website, and that is their basis. They don't steer away from that. That's the basis of what they use. So when you read that information of what a PSA 10 through a PSA 1 is, that's what they show you and tell you this is what it should be.
All right, so they train you based on those public standards that they've have posted on their website.
Public standards. So it's not like they're doing some tricky thing on the inside. People know that it's there. So if you haven't read their website, definitely hit that up and look at what
Okay.
their standards are.
All right. How much time does PSA want graders to spend per card realistically?
Realistically, I don't know if I should give a number, but it's
Roughly, are
pretty
we
quick.
talking minutes or seconds?
Let's say seconds.
Whoo!
You're not sitting there and you're not taking, depending on the severity of the card. Like if you're looking at for certain things, we're talking like we're speeding through. It's not one of those things where you're sitting there and it's like, oh, hold on, let me take a look at this, let me look at here. Like you're kind of like bordering any edges wear, anything like that. Done. Next one.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense because we had a Beckett grader on our old channel, and he said it was something like 30 seconds a card or something like that. If you're saying seconds, to me, that means
Realistically,
under a
yes.
minute. And so you can really crank through some cards. That's fascinating. All right,
Hmm.
let's shift to accountability here. Does PSA internally track greater accuracy or inconsistency?
From what I had seen when I was there, they did because that was one of their standards. It was as if you weren't hitting wherever you were supposed to be, or if you weren't grading accurate enough and you were having more people who were at grading regrading your cards, then that was one of those things that they would hold you accountable for. So it wasn't like it was something that they would just allow somebody who was grading terribly to continue to grade. They definitely hold people accountable for that.
And what would define somebody grading terribly? Would that just be like it really was an eight based on the standards, and they either gave it a 10 or a six or something like that?
Yeah, it would be based on like because based on the standards, if you're looking at a card and somebody grades it, and then another person researches it and goes, "Oh no, this looks like this." If you got somebody who's repeatedly doing that, who
Yeah.
seems like they're kind of chipping away at things just for their own purpose or whatever, then they really do pay attention to that. That's one of those things that they're just like, "No, like you're being very inaccurate. We want to make sure that you're paying attention to how we grade."
Okay, good. That makes me feel good. A lot of companies do that. Everything from a Walmart cashier is expected to have a certain amount of items per hour.
Exactly.
That makes sense to me. Are graders ever disciplined for incorrect or questionable grades?
I would say that that would be kind of the same standards as the benchmark when it
Hmm.
comes to the work. So just like any other job, if you're not up to par when it comes to your grading or your quantity of cards that you've graded, I think they looked at that and they were just kind of like, yeah, if you can't keep up, then you are disciplined for that.
All right. Back to
It's kind of like
quotas.
working at Santa's workshop.
Back to quotas and workload. So we kind of said it's seconds for cards. How many cards is a grader realistically expected to grade in one day?
Whatever you think they're supposed to grade, try to like double that by like times it by two, maybe three.
All right. Well, I don't really do public math all that often, but how many hours was a shift? 12 or
I
8?
was I was there for 8 hours.
All right, so 8 hours.
Yeah.
There's 60 minutes in an hour. Even if it was one card a minute, right? So that you've got 8 times 60.
Yeah. So yeah, even
That's
if it was
480
one,
cards. And so, yeah, all right. A nice
you
clean number feels about 500. And I bet you the top end people maybe can do six or 700. That seems
that's close.
okay.
We've
That's
got
my
we've got
public math.
some
I have a calculator on the side of the computer here.
yeah, your
Wow.
your public math is close. You might want to bump it up just a little bit without me saying anything. To be completely honest with you.
Wow.
And
Just
that's just depending on the section,
I'm
like the
going to pause
area
here
that you're
just
in.
for the benefit of the comment section, people watching this. Get this through your heads for a minute. PSA is running hot. Even with graders potentially doing up to 700 cards a day, they can't keep up and they have pace. That is wild. Like, how do you even? The only solution is computers and AI, in my opinion. Wow. Okay. Um, are there like hourly or daily quotas? Like, if you start falling behind a certain pace, do you hear about it, or is there a course correction or something like that? Or if you're getting
There
it right
are
and accurate, does that not matter?
you if you're getting it right in matter, it's not too bad. I know when I was doing the process, it was without giving away any numbers or anything, because
Mhm.
I'm not sure how they work about that. I was staying on pace for me being there for just my first time.
Okay.
So with the time frame of me being on pace, I've never heard any of my supervisors come up to me and be like, "Hey man, you're falling behind."
All right.
You do get a lot of people that probably have bad days, and so they fall behind on that pace and they don't hit those numbers that they would. But
Yeah.
but yeah, for the most part, if you're not staying on pace, they do kind of pay attention to that.
We'll talk about bad days in a minute. That just gave me another
Yeah. I knew that was
that
coming.
gave me that gave me another question for later. Um, all right. I mean, that's interesting. You obviously know cards too. We talked beforehand, and you've been a collector for a while, and you showed me some hoop stuff and WNBA stuff. So I imagine since you know cards pretty well, you're not walking off the street and you can kind of like know, like, all right, this is what a 97 metal looks like. That's what a 2012 Prism looks like, or whatever. I imagine that's handy. Um, all right. Are there any internal targets regarding like PSA 10, PSA 9? And is there any pressure to limit these grades, especially PSA 10?
I have not, nor like any of the information that I received, I did not see them set any targets for how many to do, like a quota of like you can only do this many tens or this many nines or this
All right.
many eights.
So,
Literally, it was all based off of the grading. So there wasn't any kind of funny business from what I had
okay.
seen.
So if it's a 10, got graded 10, and there wasn't like we already got five tens. There was none of that going on.
None of that.
Okay.
No, there was plenty of times where I was just like, maybe I'll see that, and I never saw that.
Yeah, let's get into consistency a little bit too, because we already talked about. I didn't realize, I bet most people watching didn't realize there's like a special group of OGs handling the vintage cards. Actually makes me feel a little bit better because I'm an 86 Fleer guy. But were graders ever instructed to grade tougher in certain eras? Like a five for a 1969 NBA tops is different than a five for, a Wemby Prism. Um, did the grading change based on era or based on card?
I would say that it did from my
Okay,
personal experience, the way that I saw things, just for the purpose of there's different textures that are used for the cards. There's different cards that are, the way that the cards are built these days is completely different.
right.
So you've got chrome cards, you've got the prism cards, and then when you look at some of the vintage cards, it's strictly cardboard.
Yeah.
So it was kind of set based off of the same standards that they have that's already out there. But they did look at it from a perspective of like, what was the product that was used to make this card. So if you have like a prism card, it's a little bit harder to bend and break. You have a little bit more rigidity to it. So they would look at it from that perspective, but I don't think it was set to like, oh yeah, this is the vintage, so we're gonna make it a five. It was more along the lines of them keeping track of the correct way of grading those cards.
All right, interesting. So the composition of the cards changes over time from cardboard to embellishment to chrome to raised, this to patch cards. And so as the card changes happened, you graded them differently based on those changes, but you weren't specifically told to be harder on 86 Fleer versus 2020 Prism. Okay.
No, no, no specifics in that. They never went, hey, so like this Jordan card that came in, we want you to grade it this way. No, it was never like that. It was literally you follow the standards of how the card is. But a lot of the times you get cards that were, almost impossible to mess up or like that were in perfect condition. And you just based off the standards. It was never do this over this.
All right. Let's talk about the human element. I just talked about how you're going to need AI to keep up. I'm just trying to consciously think, could I actually look at 700 cards in a day without going absolutely insane? I don't know the answer to that. I need to try this. I'm probably going to go insane. Um, so, do graders ever take mental breaks? Like, just go chat by the water cooler or go for a walk or like zone out, like daydream? Like how did you ever do that? And did it affect how you looked at cards?
When I was there, I did kind of take a little bit of a break in between. Just as long as I was paying attention to like where I was at with what I was grading. I would kind of stop, kind of, rest my eyes for a second. But it was pretty fast paced. It was kind of like go, 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 go. And so a lot of people need to give these graders a little bit more grace when it comes to the grading
You
process
allowed to use the
because it is,
bathroom?
oh yeah, you're allowed to use the restroom. You're allowed to do whatever you would normally do in a
It's
job.
quota
It's
based.
just
It's like a
it's one of
UPS
those
truck. You've got a certain number of packages. If you're done by 10 a.m. or 7 p.m., that's up to you as long as the packages are gone. And it sounds similar to that.
for the most part, yeah.
All right. And so you did find yourself zoning out. Did that ever affect your ability to grade a card, do you think?
No, it didn't really affect my ability to grade it. It was one
Okay.
of those things where you took a moment. You wouldn't take like 4, 5, 6 minutes because you knew you had a certain amount of cards that you had to grade. But you would take a moment to kind of take a
Right.
break.
They're
Yeah,
piling up.
you had a lunch break, you had all the other stuff.
What does that even
So the
look like?
process was
Are
different.
you sitting at like a desk and there's just like a mountain to your left, and then the done cards go to the right?
Uh, yeah, in a sense, yeah. So pretty much you are looking at a stack of cards there, and then you process those cards, and they go here, and then they start moving in the next set.
Cool. And how close are you to like another grader, like an office cubicle type of thing?
Yeah, kind of along the same lines.
All right, this is a very fun question. Somebody asked, do graders go out for lunch and or have drinks and come back grading afterwards?
They do go out for lunch.
Yeah.
None of them go out to drink. If you've actually been to the PSA location or seen like where the location is, you can Google map it. It shows you exactly where it's at. Um, that place, you're not finding very many places to
All
go
right.
drink.
It's a
There's not like bars running
brown
around
bag
there.
lunch.
They're yeah, the brown bag. There's a food truck out in the parking lot. They could do something like that. Other than that, you're not catching anybody drinking. Plus, they have like zero tolerance for that. They
Like,
won't
it's an
tolerate that
interesting
at all.
strategy,
They
right?
are
It's like let's build this warehouse in a cheap area that doesn't the rent and the least square footage is low cost and Yeah, I guess you rely on food trucks that are approved by PSA that don't have gin and vodka and Bloody Marys and whatever else you want. So it
Yeah,
sounds like most of the
yeah,
time, I'm sure you had a lunch room, right? And you just go eat lunch with the other graders and like that sort of thing, or or are
yeah.
you siloed and you have to eat lunch at your desk?
No, they had a break room. They had a break room and everything. You were able
Yeah.
to just sit out. You get away from the desk. You take your lunch. You're in a break room. You separate yourself from the rest of the cards and everything. And nobody's touching anything with dirty hands. They are very meticulous about making sure that your hands are clean while you're doing the cards. But yeah, you were
You guys
separated from it.
ever talk about the grades like amongst each other?
No, no. I kind of met a couple people, but it was more along the lines of like you're a new guy. Like most places, when you're the new
Yeah,
guy,
like,
nobody really talks to you, but you get like a
are
couple
you a
guys who will kind of
spy?
chat with you.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they ask the questions of you like, oh, what are you doing here and stuff like that. But we never talked about grades. We never kind of said if we saw this certain card, we're gonna grade it this way. It was never like that.
Did you ever have a situation where, you had a bulk submitter, or did you know like who the cards belonged to, or or something like that, or was it completely blind?
100% blind.
Okay. All right.
You
So
don't know. You know no names. It's literally just a stack of cards that has a number to them, and that's it. You do not know who you're grading for. You have no idea who like, if it's somebody, some celebrity, some Joe Schmo, nothing. You know nothing about the person you're grading for.
did you grade? You were a pretty new guy. You sounds like you were grading modern based on what you said. Like, what do you think roughly the most valuable card was that you graded? Like $100, $1,000, $100,000, $1,000,000.
I don't think they gave me anything like that, to be completely honest with you. I
Yeah.
did get to touch a little bit of vintage, but it
Okay.
wasn't anything like astronomically expensive. I'd probably say maybe a couple $100, if that. But it wasn't anything on the level of
Yeah.
like,
They were testing you out.
like exactly. They were testing me out and giving me an idea of where I fall when it comes to those cards.
All right. So grading was blind because the Beckett guy was here saying he graded his father's cards. And I was like, oh man, that's rough. All right. So that's good. I actually feel better about PSA based on what you're telling me. And so, well-known submitters, they did not get better treatment or anything like that.
Honestly, unless it was part of my training process, I never knew who the cards were from. I just knew here's a pile of cards. This is the number of the cards that you're grading. This is the number of whatever the person who's turned them in is. There was never a official name on any of the cards, so
Okay.
you have no idea.
And we already said our higher value cards graded differently. It sounds like they're graded differently in that they go to a special group if they're vintage. I mean, like
Hmm.
if that's actually a good question. Like if $100,000 plus card or $1,000,000 plus card comes through, is it the same exact process? Obviously, just with like a different person, like it's in a stack with like $1 cards and $5 cards, or do you know?
There is a process. If there's a card that comes in and it's a heavy price on that card, you're gonna get probably about two or three people who are looking at that card.
Okay.
It's not just like, hey, we're going to take your word for it, this one person. They want to make sure that they're giving you the most accurate grading on those cards. So it's not like it's just going to go like, hey, this new guy is checking it. It's going to go, hey, this guy who's been here for a little while is checking it. Then we're going to hand it off to a senior guy who's going to check it. They don't mince words when it comes to like making sure that they're giving somebody the correct grade.
Okay. Interesting. All right. The last thing I've got is, think overall, you think about your experience. Do you feel like PSA cares more about speed or accuracy if you had to pick one?
Ooh, I want to say that they care about both, just from my experience.
Yeah.
But I do feel like the speed of it was a little bit heavy. But you do have a lot of guys who have been there a while. Like I said, they're not giving the newer guys anything that's going to be too much for them. They really do map it out to where it's like, okay, we got a guy who's been here for 5 6 years. We're going to give him the heavier workload to kind of give us an idea of like who's going to be grading the best. You'll never see a new guy working as hard as some of the other guys. They build you up to that.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Damn. This was really, is there anything else you want to say about your experience of the process or anything like that that I didn't ask?
No, it was chill. I'm not gonna lie. I went through the whole process. It took a little bit of time. I think it took about 3 weeks for me to actually to just kind of get through the whole thing. Took about a week for me to actually get in the building, and
Yeah.
then after that, from there, they kind of showed me some of the fun stuff that I can't really talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
So
got to
just so you
see,
know, before I get a bunch of crap in the comments about what I should have asked, Robert's under an NDA. And so we had to be very careful with that NDA to make sure we didn't pierce it. And these are all questions that he felt comfortable answering. So yeah, I couldn't go crazy, but we did the best we could.
yeah,
Wow, thank you. This is really helpful for me. My biggest takeaway is mostly positive, actually. I sounds like they stick to the standards. They have pretty good quality control in place. They have a more seasoned group of people grading more expensive cards or different era cards. The thing that worries me a bit is the speed. Um, I get pissed off when I'm organizing a set and that's 130 cards or whatever. And I'm
uh-huh.
just like, all right, scan it in the registry, scan it in the registry. And I'm pissed by the end of it. So I just don't know if I could sit there and do 700 cards and like be happy and not take it out on the grade. Just be like,
Yeah,
this is a five.
based off of your math and not what I said,
Yeah, you didn't say it. I'm just doing
Um,
consulting math.
no, no, totally understand. Like, just wanted to clarify. But yeah, I think over time, like, there was a certain point where I was kind of like, my God, but I love looking at cards. That's the thing. If you got
Mhm.
somebody who loves trading cards, who loves sports cards, who loves cards in general, they're gonna sit there. I sit here and I have thousands, about maybe 100,000 cards just laying behind me. So I'm
Awesome.
constantly looking at cards. So it was fun for me.
All right, Robert. Thank you very much, my friend. Everybody, if, I'm going to put his Instagram handle under his name. And so if you want to reach out to him, if you have follow-up questions, he may or may not be able to answer them. But hopefully, this gives you guys a nice download of what grading's like. Thanks, man.
Yeah, of course, no problem.